No mai haere mai and welcome along to Preparedness with Working with Pandora's Box. It's a privilege and honour to be with you today. We're really excited we get to do this 15-minute whistle-stop tour around our ideas and can't wait for you to collaborate with us. My name's Kim. I'm a PTF at the University of Auckland Business School in Management International Business. This is my lovely colleague, Michelle. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle, as Kim has indicated, and I'm in the same department as Kim is, and I'm a professional teaching fellow as well at the University of Auckland Business School.
Both of us together, along with our beautiful colleagues, Carla and Parasad, have come up with this idea of how do we progress education, given that we're now in the canvas of increasing uncertainty and ambiguity. So let's start. Let's kick off.
So what we're hoping at the end of this roundtable video presentation session and engaging with the Google Jamboards that follow this, that you'll be able to recognise the stimuli that's created the need for the learning map. You'll be able to appreciate those critical capabilities to make sure that our graduates are work ready. You'll be able to place the students at the heart of their education, understand why we think that's important, understand the premise of building knowledge from the inside out, starting with the student and developing out from there, and the importance of collaborating to consider, critique and add value to the proposed learning map will come from your involvement at the end of this. So let's have a look at the stimuli to begin with. This really sits at the heart of this idea of what we consider to be Pandora's box. What's important for our future graduates if we think about the students that we've got with us now and the students that are coming to us, and that's about discussions about the future of work, organisations and society, and what some of the complexities are that sits in around that. And this is underpinned by some of those complex social, political, economic and environmental challenges, and we'll talk a little bit more about that soon. We've put on the slides what some of those in a sort of finer detail might be. These developments can create these developments create contemporary conditions that can include things like the ambiguity and uncertainty that Kim talked about, disruption, confusion and flux and much movement. And as educators, it's important that we think about developing learning experiences that develop the students' individual and collective ability to be able to manage and thrive in those contexts. Current and future business education requires students to be able to think on their feet, think critically and be able to have crucial capabilities that enable them and prepare them for the future of work. And effectively, this is what this presentation is kind of unpacking in a very limited sense today.
Great. So some of those those crucial capabilities that our department came up with in their report as things about gaining awareness of ethics and own values, to be able to articulate one perspective and actually understand and value other perspectives, even if that's not your path, to question one each other, of course, respectfully, to be able to engage collaboratively in critical and creative problem solving, a key tenet that we need in today's and future work, to have comfortable with this idea of, again, ambiguity and uncertainty. We're really wanting people to lean into this idea of individual learning agency. On top of that, getting a passion for lifelong learning, and to be able to imagine and engage and enact alternatives to problem solving. We think resilience is a real key indicator of the need that we are going to have students that need to be able to perform, to recover, to reset, and then go again. So that resilience is increasingly important. And we really want our students to be able to develop civic and political engagement, both locally and nationally, but also on the international stage. So from all that, what we've come up with is this learning map, which is placing the holistic student and their entry point, bringing those combined living experiences to date and placing it in the middle of their education. And from there, they are able to look at and place the discrete pieces of information that they'll find, so those macro links become more fluid and more instinctual than what has been in the past. Okay, so again, quick whistle stop tour. Let's get into some of the pedagogy or andragogy that sits behind it. So the learning spiral was really important to us. We do have a really nice spiritual connection to Māori in terms of why we chose the learning spiral. We really wanted to engage again with the relevance, enthusiasm for learning that comes out of the students exploring and growing own sense of self, and that came out of the enthuse, explore, extend and exhibit framework framework. We want them to build the situational awareness with themselves, with the environment, with each other. So this really tips into the sense-making literature, where again, lifelong learning is there and Mātauranga Māori is there. Now, we have drawn on a number of common frames and tools that business education looks at, and this is growing the sense of self and resilience. We're really looking at organisational framing through process, people and purpose, and drawing on pestle and then tikanga and te ao Māori.
So let's have a look now at how we bring this all together. And what we're going to start with is this idea of placing the student at the very centre of their education. So this underpins the learning spiral and also the diagram that you can see on this page. But it's more than just the student. It's about enlarging their perspectives and the skill base that they can take away from their time at the university and their business education, and help prepare them for what is going to be ahead of them when they enter the world of work and become practitioners upon graduation. So it's about learning who they are and how to grow. It's about learning more about the roles they can play in teams of organisations. It's about thinking about how the organisations that they work for operate within the industries they do, and how that has a competitive framework around it, or a socially focused framework as well, potentially. Also learn about how they fit into society and become citizens of the world, and think about the impact and the opportunity on their and the opportunities available to them and in their lives. Really, we're thinking about how they can participate in teams. We're thinking about how they can contribute to their organisations and the goals and the future of their organisations, and add to industry knowledge to become experts in their field. It's also about them contributing in the national level, so making sure that they can contribute in their organisations to make sure that they're adding to the national economy, and making sure that they have the ability to think internationally and perform on the international stage.
So one of the things that we wanted to do is bring in that organisational framing, which is a key part of business education. And we've really looked to align most business disciplines with three key ideas that overlay the learning spiral. This is process, purpose, and people. So when we pair that back to its most basic premise, it's ways of communicating into who, it's ways of organising and what, and where do we need to be and why. So that purpose and that overwhelming strategy of where we're planting our flag and working towards really helps students have a think about what we're wanting to do and get out of our businesses.
What is important is that the model acknowledges that knowledge can't successfully be taught or practiced by being divorced from the context in which these things are occurring. So it's important that we think about some of the tools we can use to help with this. There are drivers and forces in the environment that impact on opportunities and inform our decision making, not only while the students are at university, but once they are in the real world as well as practitioners. So pestle is a concept they can think about and use. They can be taught that in their business education, but also take that forward, and that can also underpin the sort of acknowledgement that we are giving here around how they can grow and become the type of lifelong learners that we're talking about. So the factors in a pestle analysis are relatively well known: political, economic, socio-cultural, technical, legal and ethical environment. What this framework does is provides a bird's eye view of the whole environment from many different angles. Assists students to recognise and track developments and determine responses to those in a very digestible way. Essentially, it helps to aid where to next and what to do now. It also helps them to recognise and think strategically. It helps them to evaluate and to put criteria around some of the decision making that they need to do. And it also helps them to think strategically. It helps them to think about what some of the opportunities are that might be presented to them. And it also helps them to think about some of the threats that might be on the horizon. And it helps them to think about how they can take advantage of those opportunities and mitigate those threats.
And I think, again, one of the critical skills that they need and capabilities is to be prolific environmental scanners. So the more aware we are of our environment, then the more poised we are to be able to and exploit those opportunities and sidestep the threats. Okay.
I think it's also about being aware of things like United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and other sort of wider contextual programs and frameworks as well.
Absolutely, those mega trends that are increasingly important that student needs to be aware of as well. And of course, our beautiful link into the New Zealand context is that New Zealand has a really unique perspective in the world because we have a treaty of partnership, the Treaty of Waitangi, and that has rights and responsibilities that overlays and underpins our external environment and the relationships within those environments. So te ao, te reo, and te kananga, increasingly important part of New Zealand's worldview. So to reinforce this and acknowledge the importance of our unique environment, we have drawn on the koro, and this is a spiral shape based on the appearance of an unfurling silver fern fond. So this symbol in Māori indicates creation, new life, growth, strength, and perpetual movement that radiates out from the origin, but also acts as an anchor, as a point home. And this really reinforces the idea that learning needs to be lifelong, that people should be coming back home to eat, to recover, and then back out into the world again. So this has got a really nice connection with our learning map because it's really helping to sustain our students as they look to progress out into the world.
I think that's a really important point about this idea of lifelong learning. It's more than just effectively a personal goal attainment or professional development. It's that plus. So it's about thinking about this as being the pursuit of personal and professional knowledge and development, but it's also about thinking about being an active citizen. It's about thinking about personal development to help contribute to society. It's about self-sustainability, and it's also thinking about things beyond just competitiveness and employability. It's actually thinking about whole self and how you can continue to have that across your lifetime. And as the bottom comment says, it's about mana and it's about mahi or work that provides multitude of benefits for self, family, organisations, industry, nations and around the world, which sits nicely within that framework that we've presented to you already.
Okay, so of course we need to place our learning in the appropriate context, which the learning map actually allows students to kind of really basically plop in the discrete pieces of information that there are to make those links and to see how the whole work goes. And in my head, I see that as a 3D model, kind of with a spiral coming up and increasing out. But the idea of the learning map is to increase student knowledge, ability, and confidence to exist and thrive in the world. So we want them to do well, and we feel that this is giving them the tools and the ability to do so. And again, this idea that business education isn't just about learning theory, which is really important because it really helps reinforce and inform and support our decisions, but actually looks to develop that holistic student to the best self-actualized version that they can be. Okay, and again, that last point there, I've already said it, student learning is about theory providing the pathway to navigate decision making and problem solving. So they've got mental modes and models that can help predict what might be happening, or for them to unpack and understand the stimuli that they see in front of them when they are presented with those opportunities and threats. So that's been a really quick look at the learning map. We know that you'll be thinking, wow, you know, there's a lot more to learn. So we really warmly invite you to participate in the roundtable discussion. We've set up some Google boards for you to be able to log into and to leave comments on and to work with some of the activities in that. We are asking people that this would be a safe and inclusive space. So please go for a yes and type of analogy where we're starting to build on each other's ideas. Again, critique is important though. So if you have a however part kind of comment, that's very welcome, but make sure that you're looking at the problem rather than the person who's left the prior comment. Okay, now we do have a working article or a white paper, and so you're very welcome to email me, kim.ashton@auckland.ac.nz, for a copy of today's slides as well as the working paper. And our final point of the day is that this week, Edward de Bono has passed away. He's been a massive influence in our life, so we just wanted to do a little shout out to him. We tip our hats to you, all 6 of them, and arguably 7 if you're wanting to look at that final one. Michelle, I'll leave you to wrap up.
Thanks very much for joining us today. We hope this little snapshot of our kind of conceptual thinking has intrigued you, and we encourage you, as Kim said, to go and join our Google Jamboard and come through and add your comments and thoughts to this. This is very much appreciated. Thank you for your time today. thank you on behalf of Kim and I and the rest of our research team. We look forward to hearing your feedback, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Ka kite anō.